When is writer's block a good thing? Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you at the end.
It's the Writing for Children podcast with your host, Katie Davis. Katie's an author herself and is the director of the Institute of Children's Literature, where since 1969, aspiring writers have learned to write for children and get published.
Episode 082, 700,000 copies and 6 figures later.
We want to write for children. We want to dream up stories in prose and poetry, from YA to picture books. You'll write a novel, I'll maybe try nonfiction, but we'll need help along the way. So there's a podcast, and it can save us, Writing for Children with Katie Davis. Let's write for children, we'll take it day by day.
Hi, everybody. How are you this week? I'm really excited because this week I am interviewing an author, Maria Dismondy, who is a self-published author, and she became a publisher. And she is making a great living and having a great time running her business, being a writer, and she's got lessons galore. So we are going to talk to her. You're going to get to listen to some of this interview I had with her, and then I'm going to tell you about the writer's block. Let's listen into this conversation that starts off with a lot of giggling.
We are good to go.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is the third take. I'm not doing this again. I keep messing up. But I'm going to tell you, I'm so excited. Probably that's why I'm messing up. I am so excited to have Maria Dismondy here today. Maria, and I'm going to read her bio. She's an award-winning author and founder of the publishing company Cardinal Rule Press. Maria inspires and educates others in the book industry. Her background in early education and research enables her to touch lives the world over while touring as a public speaker in schools, community forums, and national conferences. When Maria isn't working, she can be found embarking on adventures throughout Southeast Michigan and beyond, where she lives with her husband and 3 book-loving children. So welcome, Maria.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
You're welcome. Listen, it's my pleasure for sure. So I'm really excited because you are actually this month's membership guest, the professional guest, and that's really fun for me because, we get to talk and I get to put out a little teaser and I get to interview you, audio and video. And so here we are. We are actually looking at each other. If you're listening to this via audio on the podcast or however, you can also see some of the video. So let's talk about, now you did write a whole piece for the membership, which is great. And we are going to talk a little bit about that stuff in a bit. But first, let's talk about how you have sold over 700,000 books, self-published. No?
Yeah.
Okay. It's crazy. That's why you're going, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's
crazy.
It's crazy. It's almost 1 million books. Excuse me. So, I really want to help my peeps and tell them, and my grown children are like, Mom, never say peeps. Sorry, but it's one of my things. So I want to help the people who either are in our membership or who are considering it or not even in the membership, just listen to the podcast or whatever. And we're going to talk about how to self-publish, how you got started, and you're going to let us into a few of your secrets. So let's start with why you chose, right at the beginning. Let's start at the very beginning. Why you chose self-publishing instead of traditional, and then how you got started in self-publishing.
Excellent. Do you want me to pull my slides up right now?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So yeah, back in 2006 is when I first wrote my book, Spaghetti in a Hot Dog Bun. And I actually submitted it to 90 publishers. And this was like old school. I took, the big book that you buy. I think it's by Writer's Digest. And I just read through that, and anyone who was looking for a book that was similar to what my book was, I submitted hard copies. And I had a couple people interested, a couple publishers interested. One said if I were to take my characters and turn them from human characters to animal characters, that they would be very interested. And I actually wasn't willing to do that. I was very passionate about writing realistic fiction for children. So then the second publisher who was interested said in 3 years they would be able to publish my book. And
That's traditional.
Yeah, and I had this passion, I had this drive and this desire to get this book out there. And at the same time, I had found a local publisher, but they're a vanity press, who they were publishing kind of like passion projects. And they were willing to take on my project for a large fee. And
yeah, that's we're always guarding against that.
So I spoke with my husband, and he said, you know what, I'm willing to take the risk if you think you can make this happen. And so having someone believe in you is pretty powerful. And so, yeah, that's the route I took when I first started. And the first book was published in 2008. And it was self-published. So basically there was a publishing name on that first run. But because it's a vanity press, you can still call it self-publishing. I spent, I think it was $13,000 on that investment.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but what was that money spent on?
It was spent on the illustrator, the graphic designer, the editor, every vendor, including the printer to print. I believe we ran 3,000 copies that first print run.
Okay, so I just want to underscore something you just said. You had an editor, and I assume you had a copy editor too?
Yes, and they were all hired from that company, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was huge. And the editor took my manuscript from 1,800 words, and we would, I know.
It's a picture book.
It was my first time.
Yeah, okay.
And we brought it down to around 800, which is still pretty,
long. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to tell people who aren't aware that the average picture book now is about 500 words. If you can keep it to fewer than that, it's even better. And if you're going to do 1,800 words, it's probably a massive nonfiction. Maybe it's an educational, publishing a published copy, for the school. But oh no, yeah.
Well, I can even tell you, a teacher's not going to pick up an 1,800 word picture book and read it to their class because the attention span of our children is going down.
Right.
So it's
right.
So the book came out, and I made it a point I had given myself a goal. I was going to make that money back within that first year. I wanted to get that money back in our bank account. And so I was able to do that. And it wasn't just from book sales. How I really started making an income was by speaking engagements. So I started off my first few speaking engagements. I was working full time as a teacher, and on my breaks, I would pitch schools to visit their schools while I had time off. And I did a few free, and then I started charging and really connecting and making relationships with those schools. And that helped start my speaking engagement career, which is a substantial amount of my income. Right now, it's 40% of my total income. So then in 2011, my second book came out, and my second child was born, and I resigned from teaching. I was teaching over a decade. Wow. Because we looked at the numbers and we saw, okay, well, I can continue working part-time on this book author thing and be okay as far as what I was making as a teacher. It was very comparable. And then 2015, I published a book for an NFL player. And at that time, I had just signed on with a new distributor, and they said, well, that means you're a publisher. So you need a website and you need a publishing company name.
Yeah.
And so that's when Cardinal Rule Press was born. And so now here we are in 2017. I've changed my business model. We are now a traditional publisher. We started off in 2015 as a hybrid press. So I was charging a small fee to my clients to help them publish their books. And So yeah, and now we have 9 titles in all. They're all backlists. All of my backlist titles are still in print, which is pretty exciting. And we have, like we talked about, over 700,000 copies.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And so you are able to, people can submit to you, correct?
Yeah, we have open submissions right now until the end of February.
Of 2018.
Yes, and we have very specific guidelines on our website, so please check
Which
there.
is cardinalrulepress.com.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, we are going to start talking about, we'll do one of your tips, and then we will save the rest of your tips for people who are in our membership. So let's first talk about one tip, because so many people have so much trouble with scheduling their time and trying to get their work done. And writing, it's part of it. It's only part of it. Getting it completed is a whole other thing, which is why we have started the membership, because so many people were asking us, how do I get these things done? I mean, I started this and I can't finish it. People in our courses, of course, have a one-on-one mentor the entire time, and they come out of the courses with a submittable manuscript. But if you're not one of our active students, you don't have that. And so that's why the membership just seemed like, an obvious next move, and to support people and all that. So this is a great topic. And since some people are going to be listening to this, I'm going to read what it says on your slide. It says, number 1, go big. Look at the big picture. What's your deadline? And you need to give yourself a deadline and you probably are going to say that. Be realistic. So this interview actually goes deeper than the article, it goes into much more detail. So let's go deeper than what we know you wrote. Nobody else knows yet, but they will.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the deal. Looking at the big picture, you have to say, what is my why? Like, what is my purpose? I mean, not only what is your deadline, but what do you want to do with this book? So timing is everything. Right now, when I have my own titles that are being released, I want them to come out during March's Reading Month, because I'm in front of like 20,000 kids for speaking engagements that month. So not only am I looking at when I want the book to come out, but I have to match it with my purpose. My purpose is I'm going to get in front of all those people. I want a new book to be talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or maybe you're writing a memoir. Maybe it's something just you don't want to share at your family's next reunion.
Right.
So you have to think about, like, what is your purpose of writing this?
Right. And look into the future.
Yes. And what is that deadline? So I would give yourself, you have to think about your life too. Are you working full time? When is this going to be happening? So consider that and start big, and then start working backwards and actually putting it in the calendar. So for example, my best time to write and to get work done is between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. because of the season I am in my life. My children are sleeping at that time. The house is quiet. I'm a morning person. And so I literally will write on the calendar. I will block out time.
These are great. This is everything I recommend. I love it. I love hearing, a stamp of agreement, approval, hearing somebody else saying exactly what I say is just so gratifying, because yes, I put it in the calendar too.
Spirit.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Kindred spirits.
Yes.
So Katie, something that you had mentioned, when people are in the membership, they have that mentor. No.
Let me be clear. When they are our students, their teacher, their instructor takes them through every assignment. They have a one-on-one. It's like having your own editor.
And I want you to know how powerful that is, because I have an accountability partner, and I have for the last 4 years now. And that is what keeps me on track.
Right.
Telling someone else, this is my deadline. Telling someone else, this week, I commit to doing X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing in the membership too. We are giving people, accountability.
I think that's really powerful. And that's where I say be realistic. You have to know what your schedule is, and you have to commit to it. And then you have to, I think telling someone else is really powerful, because they can turn around and say, hey, Katie, you said you were going to do this week. What happened? And then you're like, oh, I have to explain myself.
Yeah, right.
So really, writing tip number 1 is those following 3. Like, think big picture. What's going to be the deadline? Consider what's happening in your life, and be realistic. And if you can, get that accountability partner. I think that's really powerful.
And the realistic part is you saying, I'm a morning person. Don't schedule your writing for night if you're like, oh, I'm too tired to get up in the morning. Even though I'm a morning person, I'm not going to get up because I'm working late. Well, the realistic part of that is that you're in a time where you're working late. So don't do that. So maybe you have to do it on the weekend, or if you have little kids, or you have to do it in the morning before they wake up, or whatever. You have to do it after you take your dog to the dog park so the dog isn't bothering you and the dog's all exhausted. You do it then.
Yeah. And I've actually witnessed someone I worked with, their expectations for themselves. They were that person who stayed up working till 2:00 in the morning. And they said, no, I'm going to write. I'm going to write at 5 in the morning, and I'm going to do it for 7 straight days. And I was like, but you're going to stay up till 2 in the morning and then you're going to write at 5. Like, that's not healthy. Mm-mm. So I had to come to that person and say, I need you to reconsider that, because you're going to fall flat on your face if you keep that.
And you want to stay healthy. One of the things, there's that expression BIC, butt in chair. But I also say butt out of the chair because you have to exercise. You have to work out. You have to be healthy, because as writers, we are in those chairs a lot. And we really have to exercise, because, you can get all kinds of, I'm going to sound like an old lady, but you can get hip problems sitting all the time. You can not only getting heavy, but you can get physical problems from sitting. And sitting is the new smoking. Did you know that?
Actually, my husband, because he sits in his job all day. He doesn't get up hardly once.
Right.
And he read an article about that. It's true.
Mm-hmm. I got a standing desk. My desk is up and down now.
That's awesome.
I just saw one at Costco for like $200. I'm like, what? Why did I spend all that on my foot? And my husband was like, oh, I said, I've had mine for a year. Okay, so stop. I've been using it. Anyway, so a little peek into my Costco arguments. So let's go. Let's move on to the next one. But first, I just want to say to everybody who has been listening, thank you for listening. You're more than welcome to subscribe to the podcast. It's totally free. But if you are interested in the membership, go to bit.ly/freeifw. It's bit.ly/freeifw, all lowercase. Now, we're going to go on with your next big tips and secrets. Well, I hope you liked that, everybody. It was so much fun to interview her, and sorry to be such a tease. I'm a writer. I had to give you a cliffhanger, right? Well, if you're one of the people who has downloaded the prompts that I made, you know that we are sending all these support materials, 2 things following the prompts, 2 wonderful little surprises. And we've heard from dozens and dozens of people that the prompts have helped jumpstart an idea or nudged you to push, procrastination out and just sit down and write, the BIC, the butt in the chair. And it's so great because it got us to thinking, procrastination and organization and overwhelm are the 3 top reasons people don't get their writing done. And you don't get it done, you don't get it submitted. You don't get it submitted, you don't get published. So unless you're doing it yourself, and even then, you need to be self-motivated. So we decided to do something to help you get past those blocks. We decided to create the writer's block, like a neighborhood, a monthly inspiration community, custom tailored. So you know how a critique group works, right? You share your work in progress and you get feedback from the people in your group. You get input so you can make improvements before you make it public. What is the writer's block? It's a virtual community offering you writing inspiration, publishing instruction, and marketing skills. We're going to have so much encouragement for you to keep you going when the going hits a dead stop. It's like your neighborhood stoop. I am a New York City girl, and it's like a stoop to sit on and for a little bit of respite when you just can't seem to get that, BIC, right? So as a writer's block neighbor, you'll have exclusive access to expert interviews and special products, discounts, and market news. And we're not going to be making these available anywhere else. Okay, hence the word exclusive. But before we go public, wide, I'm only introducing this to my listeners and the people who have downloaded those prompts. Before we go public, we're going to ask what else you think we should include. People who move into the neighborhood. So where we might improve, and if there's anything you're not finding useful, and together we can mold this into something bigger and better and totally tailor-made, something that really will help you in the places you need. So if you get in this early phase, you'll be a charter neighbor, and it's something you really should check out. So I want to give you a link, and you can go check it out. There's no obligation or anything like that. It's just something to look into. writingforchildren.com/writersblock. See you around the neighborhood.